Okay, welcome back to another episode in my kitchen. Today we're going to cook something really exciting. We're going to make some authentic Madras curry powder. Okay, so you're obviously aware that Madras curry powder seems to be quite a standard in a lot of countries, but we're actually going to do it with whole spices and get it as authentic as possible. And when I say authentic, it's quite hard to define what a Madras curry powder is. I mean, the history of it is a lot of colonialists from England used to live in Madras, which is now Chennai. They got a taste for the local spicy Indian food, and when they'd come back home to Britain, they wanted to continue eating those, they wanted to continue experiencing those flavours. So they'd get one of the chefs to basically grind a pre-prepared mix of curry powder that they could bring back to England and enjoy with their food. Okay, so let's start with the ingredients. In an aluminium saucepan that's on the cooker, we have, where's my pointy stick? We have, let's start clockwise from the top. So we have 3 red whole chilies. We have a heaped teaspoon of black pepper. We have 1 cinnamon leaf, tejpata. We have 2 teaspoons of cumin seed. We have a good tablespoon of coriander seed, which is the main ingredient. Next to that, we have a hint of fennel, maybe 1/3 of a teaspoon. We have some green cardamoms that I've cracked the husks off to reveal the seeds, 4 in quantity. Next to that, we have about 2/3 of a teaspoon of fenugreek seed. Next to that, on the left, we have some black mustard seed, about a teaspoon. We have 4 cloves. We have a hint of cassia bark, which is basically cinnamon to most people. And finally, we have some curry leaves, which are already dried. They don't taste anything near as wonderful as fresh curry leaves, but because they're all going to be dried anyway, it doesn't matter. And so those are the whole spices. And what we're going to do when we grind those in a moment, we're going to use a spice grinder, and we're going to add just about a teaspoon of turmeric, and we're definitely going to use some salt in there, just like 1/2 teaspoon, because salt really just graphic equalizes all the flavors of the spices and makes it really tasty. So what we're going to do is turn the gas on, and we're going to roast the spices. So we can mix that around now. And when you're grinding your own spices, you don't want it too hot. You don't want the spices to smoke. What the grinding is, although all the spices are already dried, what the roasting does is releases some of the oil in the seeds, making them a lot more aromatic. Okay, I'm using a different camera today. I don't have a pause button, so this is going to be in real time. So we're just going to let those spices heat up. You know when they're heated up because they'll start to make your kitchen smell amazing. I can start to smell that cumin coming through now. That's one of the first to crackle, if you like. Turn it up a little bit. Be careful of the heat. Like I said, you don't want to burn these spices. You just want to slowly dry them out a little bit and release some of that oil, release some of that flavour. I'm actually going to break up the dried red chilies, they'll dry a lot quicker. Seeds in as well, I like my powder quite spicy. Same with the bay leaf. Get rid of that stalk. Starting to smell some of those other spices coming through now. Give it a good stir occasionally, you don't want anything to burn. Keep it moving is a good way to ensure you don't burn anything. You can smell some of the other flavours coming through now. Another stalk. Starting to crackle slightly. And the reason I'm making such a small batch is because when I use this in the cooking, I want it to be as fresh as possible. And another thing, my spice blender is quite small, which is just as well, because you don't want to keep this type of spice for very long. A couple of months at the most. Okay, definitely starting to toast a little. And to crackle. And what I'm going to do now is just turn the heat off. I'm going to turn the heat off, give that a stir. Let's test something. Okay, very crispy. Surprisingly, very, very hot. When you don't have liquids in the pan, you can never tell how hot it is, but yeah, very, very crackly, very crisp. So let's just give that a little bit more time. Great. Now I'm going to transfer that. You can hear how dry everything is. I'm going to transfer that now to something that it'll begin to cool down. And the trick is, when I used to start out doing this years ago, I'd always be blending my spices straight away. One thing I've learnt is to let your spices cool down before you blend them. I just find that if we were to blend this now, it would be very, I don't know, there'd be not a burnt flavour, but it just wouldn't be right. So that's why I put it into a container to stop any more heat. I'll just let those cool down in a moment. So those are cooling down nicely. So does this plug work? Great. Okay, pretty much cooled down. We're going to empty all that in to the spice blender. pretty much blended, quite rustic. What I like to do at this stage, your frying pan is still hot. So just to ensure everything's really blended, it has to be dry. So what I like to do is put it back once into the hot pan. And it won't take long, just give it a big surface area. Just to dry out a little bit more. No need to put it on the heat. So it's quite grainy. So what's the difference between this recipe and garam masala? Well, garam masala is basically a whole spice recipe as well, but this has got more coriander, more cumin, more of the, I wouldn't call them filler, but you know, less of the really pungent spices. Did you notice that I only said a hint of fennel, a hint of cinnamon, not too many cloves. Okay, that's nice. Transfer it back to here, because I always find putting it from the frying pan straight into the blender to be quite messy. Back in for another blend. And we got a really nice golden brown colour there. And remember, we haven't added the turmeric and the salt yet. That's better. Okay, a lot more fluffier. That's always a sign of a very nice, freshly ground spice mix, is when it's fluffy. And that certainly is fluffy. Look at that. So light. Okay, in with the salt and the turmeric. Give that another whirl. Okay, that should do it. Very, very light and fluffy. Wow, look at that. So, who needs Madras powder from the shop when you can do this? Really simple. You can adapt recipes accordingly to your taste. So there it is. Authentic Madras curry powder. Feel free to like, subscribe. Hope you've enjoyed that.